The spring fair smelled like fried dough and cut grass. I stood backstage at the Maplewood Community Stage, guitar strap cutting into my shoulder the way it had 1,000 times before. The local band needed a vocalist for their last set, and somebody remembered I used to play. "Frank, you're up," the drummer called. I walked into the sunlight and started singing an old blues number I'd written 20 years ago for my wife Claire and baby Emily. The crowd swayed. People clapped. For 3 minutes, I wasn't a 62-year-old retired music teacher living alone in a house that echoed. I was alive again. Then I saw her face in the crowd. Emily stood with 5 college friends, all holding ice cream cones, all looking at the stage. But while her friends smiled, my daughter's expression twisted into something between horror and rage. Her cheeks flushed red. She turned to her friends, said something sharp, and they all looked at me differently. The song ended. The crowd cheered. But Emily's glare cut through every bit of applause like a knife through paper. That look said everything: shame. She showed up at my house 3 hours later, slamming the front door so hard the picture frames rattled. "What were you thinking?" Emily's voice cracked with fury. "Do you have any idea what you just did to me?" I set down my coffee. I was helping the band. They needed. I don't care what they needed. She paced my living room like a caged animal. My friends were there. People from my program were there. And there's my dad, singing some ancient song like he's trying to relive his glory days. "It wasn't about glory," I said quietly. "They just asked if I could. You made me look pathetic. Like I come from some family that can't let go of the past." She crossed her arms. Everyone was staring. I stood up slowly, my knees protesting. "Emily, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to embarrass you." Too late. She grabbed her purse. "You know what the worst part is? You actually looked happy up there. Like you don't even care how it affects me." The words hung in the air between us. Then she delivered the final blow. "You're not my inspiration, Dad. You're my embarrassment." The door slammed again. This time, I didn't try to stop her. 3 days passed with no word from Emily. I called twice the first day, 3 times the second. By the 3rd day, I just texted, "Can we talk?" The message showed as read. No response. My house had never felt so quiet. I'd lived alone since Claire died 4 years ago, but Emily used to visit every Sunday. We'd have breakfast. She'd tell me about her psychology program at the university. I'd show her whatever students sent me from their own music careers. Now the silence pressed against my ears like water. On Thursday, my cousin Helen called. "Frank, I ran into Emily at the grocery store yesterday. How did she seem?" Helen paused too long. "She told me you've been struggling to let go of your glory days. Said you embarrassed her at some community event." My chest tightened. "She said that? I'm just telling you what I heard." She seemed pretty upset. Helen's voice softened. "What happened, Frank?" I told her about the fair, the song, Emily's reaction. "Give her space," Helen advised. "She's young. She'll come around." But as I hung up, I wondered if she would. Sunday morning, I walked to my piano, the Baldwin upright Claire and I had bought at an estate sale 30 years ago. Sheet music lay scattered across the bench. Half-finished compositions. Ideas that would never become songs. I closed the lid gently, the way you'd close a coffin. If singing embarrassed Emily, then I wouldn't sing anymore. If my music made her ashamed, I'd give it up. That's what fathers do. They sacrifice for their children. Days turned into weeks. Dust settled on the piano's closed lid. The strings inside slowly fell out of tune from lack of use. I stopped listening to music entirely. Even the radio stayed off. One evening, I was washing dishes when I heard something faint coming from the basement. I dried my hands and followed the sound downstairs. An old cassette player sat on a shelf, somehow still running. Claire's voice drifted out, singing her favorite melody, a lullaby she used to hum to Emily. I stood there in the dusty basement, listening to my dead wife's voice. Then I heard her whisper, as clear as if she stood beside me. "Don't let her take this from you." I turned off the player and went back upstairs, but the words followed me. 2 weeks later, a flyer appeared in my mailbox. Maplewood Community Arts Center Charity Concert, featuring your former students. I almost threw it away, but something made me read the names: Trevor Hopkins, Amanda Reyes, Christopher Dane. Students I taught 15 and 20 years ago, now professional musicians. The concert was Friday night. I told myself I wouldn't go. Then Friday afternoon, I found myself driving to the Arts Center anyway. I sat in the back row, wearing my old jacket, hoping nobody would notice me. The lights dimmed. My former students took the stage, all grown up, all talented beyond what I'd imagined possible. Trevor played piano. Amanda sang. Christopher conducted a small ensemble. Before their final piece, Amanda stepped to the microphone. "We'd like to dedicate this performance to someone special. Most people here don't know him, but he taught all of us to listen, really listen, to what music could say when words weren't enough." My throat tightened. "Mr. Frank Whitfield, if you're out there, this is for you." Tears came before I could stop them. I stayed until the final note faded, then slipped out before anyone could speak to me. That night, I opened my piano lid for the first time in weeks. I couldn't sleep. At 2 in the morning, I sat at my piano with manuscript paper and a pencil, ideas flowing faster than I could write them down. The song came from somewhere deep and raw. All the things I'd never said to Emily, all the love she couldn't see, all the hurt that had nowhere to go. By sunrise, I had verses and a chorus. By noon, I'd worked out the guitar part. By evening, I'd titled it Unheard Melody. The song wasn't angry. It wasn't pleading. It was just honest, a father trying to reach a daughter who'd stopped listening. I played it through twice, making small adjustments, then sat back and stared at the finished sheet music. This was it. Everything I couldn't say to Emily's face, translated into notes and words. I picked up my phone and scrolled through old contacts until I found Thomas Rivera, a former student who now worked as a sound engineer in Seattle. We'd stayed in touch over the years through occasional emails. I typed, "Thomas, I know this is random, but I wrote something. Could you help me record it?" His response came 20 minutes later. "Mr. Whitfield? Of course. When?" "Soon." I wrote back. Before I lose my nerve. Thomas's studio was a converted garage in downtown Maplewood, small but professional. He'd set up a single microphone, a guitar stand, and a chair. "Just you and the guitar?" Thomas asked, adjusting levels on his mixing board. "That's all I need." I played Unheard Melody 3 times. The first take was shaky. The second was better. The third felt right, my voice cracking in places, but honest. When I finished, Thomas sat quietly for a long moment, staring at his computer screen. "Mr. Whitfield," he finally said, his voice soft. "This sounds like forgiveness." I packed my guitar into its case. "It's not forgiveness yet." "Then what is it?" I thought about Emily's face at the fair, her words at my house, the silence that had stretched between us for weeks. "It's me trying," I said. "That's all it is." Thomas nodded and handed me a USB drive. "I'll clean it up and send you the final mix tomorrow." I took the drive and left, feeling lighter somehow. That weekend, I wrote Emily a letter. Not an email. An actual letter on paper with my handwriting. "Dear Emily, I'm sorry I embarrassed you at the spring fair. I should have thought about how it would look to your friends. You're building a life and a reputation, and I understand that my presence there made things difficult. I've always been proud of you, more than you know. If my music gets in the way of that, I'll stop. If my singing makes you uncomfortable, I'll stay quiet. Whatever you need from me, I'll do it. I love you more than any song I could write. Dad." I read it aloud in my empty kitchen, hearing the words bounce off the walls. Then I realized what I was doing. Apologizing for loving her. Apologizing for being myself. Apologizing for existing in a way that didn't fit her image. I walked to the fireplace, struck a match, and watched the letter burn to ash. Some apologies shouldn't be made. May arrived with warm weather and the anniversary of Claire's death. Emily came to town for the memorial service at Maplewood Cemetery, but parked 3 rows away from where I stood. She laid flowers at Claire's headstone while I watched from behind an oak tree, giving her space the way everyone kept telling me to do. Neighbors whispered. Mrs. Patterson from down the street shook her head. That girl should be ashamed, treating her father like that. Emily finished at the grave, walked to her car, and drove away without looking back. I stayed another hour, talking to Claire's headstone about our daughter and how I didn't know how to fix what I'd broken. She'll come around. I told Claire's name carved in granite. But I didn't believe it anymore. That night, I ate dinner alone and wondered if this was my life now. Holidays alone, birthdays alone, growing old with nobody to call. 2 weeks later, I collapsed in my kitchen while making coffee. One moment I was standing at the counter, the next I was on the floor, staring at the ceiling with my heart hammering like a drum. I called 911. The paramedics arrived in minutes. At the hospital, Dr. Patel explained, high blood pressure, stress-related. Nothing immediately dangerous, but a warning. You need to reduce stress, she said firmly. Whatever's causing it, you need to address it. My neighbor Veronica, a widow who lived 2 houses down, visited that evening with soup and crackers. Frank, you can't keep doing this to yourself. She sat in the hospital chair, her gray hair pulled back. Living alone, barely eating, cutting yourself off from everything that makes you happy. My daughter thinks my music embarrasses her. So you stop playing? Veronica's eyes narrowed. Frank Whitfield, I've known you for 15 years. Music isn't something you do. It's who you are. I'm her father first. Being her father doesn't mean disappearing. She stood up, gathering her purse. Don't die with your music still in you. That's not protecting Emily. That's just dying slowly. After she left, I lay in the hospital bed thinking about her words until visiting hours ended. 3 days after leaving the hospital, I sat at my computer searching for music competitions and submissions. I wasn't sure what I was looking for until I found it. The Cascade Regional Arts Initiative, a program that partnered with universities throughout Washington and Oregon to showcase emerging and established artists. They accepted anonymous submissions for their graduation season showcase. Universities would select pieces for their commencement ceremonies. I stared at the submission form for 20 minutes before uploading Unheard Melody, with no name attached, just anonymous submission from Maplewood. My cursor hovered over the submit button. If Emily somehow heard this song, would it make things better or worse? Would she recognize it as mine? Did I even want her to? I clicked submit and closed my laptop. Whatever happened next was out of my hands now. For the first time in months, that felt like freedom. 4 weeks later, an email arrived. Congratulations! Your submission has advanced to final selection for the Cascade Regional Arts Initiative. The reviewing university is Redwood State University. My blood went cold. Redwood State. Emily's university. Her psychology program was there. Her graduation was there in 2 months. I called Thomas immediately. I need to withdraw my submission. What? What? It's at Emily's school. If they pick it, if she finds out it's mine. Mr. Whitfield, Thomas interrupted. Maybe that's exactly what needs to happen. You don't understand. She doesn't want to hear from me. Then let her hear the song without knowing it's you. His voice was gentle. Let the music speak first. I hung up and stared at the email. I could withdraw. 1 click and Unheard Melody would disappear from consideration. But Veronica's words echoed. Don't die with your music still in you. I closed the email without withdrawing. At Redwood State University, the music department gathered to review final submissions. Emily's roommate, Autumn, sat on the student selection committee. Autumn listened to Unheard Melody 3 times in a row before speaking. This one, she said firmly. I know we've heard others with better production, bigger orchestration. But this feels real. Like someone poured their whole heart into 4 minutes. Professor DeMarco nodded slowly. The lyrics are remarkably honest. No pretense. Another committee member agreed. It fits our commencement theme perfectly, legacy and connection. Dean Patterson made the final decision. I want to know who wrote this. The submission says Maplewood. Someone reach out. Autumn pulled up the submission details. They requested anonymity, but listed a contact email. Want me to send an invitation? Do it, the dean said. Tell them we've selected their piece. Invite them to the ceremony as our guest. The committee voted unanimously. Unheard Melody would play at Redwood State's graduation in 6 weeks. I tried calling Emily that week, just to hear her voice, maybe ask about her graduation plans. I didn't mention the song. Her assistant answered, a student worker named Kyle. Hi, I'm looking for Emily Whitfield. She's unavailable right now. Super busy with graduation week, thesis defense, you know how it is. Kyle's voice was friendly but firm. Can I take a message? Just tell her I'm thinking about her. Sure thing. Who should I say called? Her father. Silence on the line. Oh, okay. I'll let her know. He hung up before I could say anything else. 2 days later, a formal invitation arrived in my mailbox. You are cordially invited to attend Redwood State University's commencement ceremony as a special guest of the Arts Initiative. My hands shook reading it. They wanted me there. At Emily's graduation. And she had no idea. The Maplewood Gazette ran a feature article, Mystery Teacher's Song Selected for University Graduation. A local retired educator has been chosen to provide this year's commencement music at Redwood State University. The anonymous submission, titled Unheard Melody, was selected from over 200 entries for its raw emotional honesty, according to university officials. We know the composer is from Maplewood and has a background in music education, but they've requested to remain anonymous, said Dean Patterson. I read the article 3 times, then cut it out and put it in my desk drawer. Meanwhile, Emily read the same article in her dorm room. Autumn showed it to her, laughing. Can you imagine? Some old guy clinging to his past, thinking his song is graduation material. Emily barely glanced at it. Probably wrote it 40 years ago and never moved on. Her friends laughed. Emily joined in, not knowing she was laughing at her father. The Redwood State Orchestra began rehearsals. Autumn attended, sitting in the auditorium while musicians worked through unheard melody. Emily showed up late, rushing in to meet Autumn before they had lunch plans. The orchestra was halfway through the second verse when Emily paused in the aisle. This sounds familiar, she whispered. That's the graduation song, Autumn said. Beautiful, right? Emily listened to another verse, her forehead creasing. Where have I heard this melody before? Probably just one of those universal chord progressions. Musicians recycle them all the time. But Emily couldn't shake the feeling. The guitar pattern, the rhythm, something about it touched a memory she couldn't quite reach. The conductor called for the orchestra to stop. Perfect. This piece embodies our theme beautifully, legacy. Emily shook off the strange feeling and left with Autumn for lunch, but the melody stayed with her. Veronica visited me Wednesday afternoon, her tablet in hand. Frank, you need to see this. She pulled up a video, shaky phone footage of the Redwood State Orchestra rehearsing Unheard Melody. Someone had recorded it and posted it online. I listened to my song played by a full orchestra, tears streaming down my face. They'd kept my guitar arrangement but added strings, making everything richer without losing the intimacy. It's perfect, Veronica said softly. She's going to know, I whispered. Emily will recognize it. Maybe she should. I listened to the recording 3 more times that night. Then I made a decision. I was going to the graduation. My performance suit hung in the back of my closet, still in the dry cleaning bag from 4 years ago, the last time I'd worn it at Claire's memorial service. I pulled it out, half expecting moths or stains, but it was perfect. Navy blue, simple, dignified. I tried it on in front of my bedroom mirror. The pants were a little loose. I'd lost weight from stress, but otherwise it fit. I looked like a man going somewhere important, like someone who still mattered. Wish me luck, I said to Claire's photo on my dresser, her smile frozen in time, her eyes still bright with the joy I remembered from our best days. I laid the suit out for Saturday morning and tried to sleep. Graduation day arrived with cloudless skies. I drove to Redwood State 2 hours early, my invitation letter in my jacket pocket. The check-in desk didn't recognize me, but my name tag read exactly what the invitation promised. Guest of honor, local arts contributor. I took a seat in the back row of the auditorium, away from families and cameras. Around me, parents adjusted their phones, grandparents waved small flags, siblings complained about uncomfortable chairs. Normal families at a normal graduation. Then I saw her. Emily stood backstage in her cap and gown, talking with other graduates. Her dark hair fell over her shoulders. She looked confident, radiant, every inch the accomplished student she'd worked so hard to become. She had no idea I was there. No idea about the song. No idea that everything was about to change. Dean Patterson stepped to the podium as the ceremony began. Speeches about achievement and future potential filled the air. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. Before we begin conferring degrees, the dean announced, we have a special musical selection. This year's graduation song was chosen through our Arts Initiative partnership. It's an anonymous submission from one of our community's finest educators, a person who understands that true legacy is passed from teacher to student, parent to child. The crowd applauded politely. The orchestra raised their instruments. The first notes of Unheard Melody filled the auditorium. Gentle guitar, building strings, the melody I'd written in my kitchen at 2 in the morning. I watched Emily's face from across the room. Her head turned toward the stage. Her expression shifted. Recognition dawned slowly, like sunrise breaking over mountains. She froze completely. Tears appeared in Emily's eyes. Her hand went to her mouth. Next to her, another graduate noticed. Emily, you okay? Emily didn't answer. She was listening to the second verse, the one about missing someone who was right there, about love that couldn't reach across silence. The melody wove in Claire's old lullaby, hidden in the harmony, the same one her mother used to hum when Emily was small. Her whole body started trembling. Other graduates looked concerned. When Emily's turn came to give her student speech, she walked to the podium on shaking legs. She spoke about growth and gratitude, but her voice cracked. She rushed through her prepared remarks, barely coherent. Autumn touched her arm afterward. "What's wrong?" "That song," Emily whispered. "Didn't your dad used to sing something like that?" "Your dad?" Autumn looked confused. "The music teacher?" Emily's face went pale as understanding crashed over her. After the ceremony, Dean Patterson gathered the student committee in the lobby. I stood nearby, trying to stay invisible. "I want to thank our anonymous composer," the dean said, gesturing toward me. "Mr. Whitfield drove all the way from Maplewood to be here today. His composition added something truly special to our ceremony." Autumn's eyes went wide. "Whitfield? As in Emily Whitfield's father?" The dean nodded. "Yes, what a wonderful coincidence." "Oh no." Autumn turned, scanning the crowd. "Emily doesn't know he's here." But Emily had already heard. She stood 20 feet away, still in her cap and gown, staring at me like she'd seen a ghost. Our eyes met across the crowded lobby. She walked toward me slowly, pushing through congratulations and family photos. When she reached me, she stopped just out of reach. "That was you." Her voice barely worked. "That song. That was yours." "Yes." "The spring fair. The embarrassment. And you wrote that song anyway." I nodded. Dean Patterson approached, oblivious to the tension. "Mr. Whitfield, the board has been discussing your work. We'd like to offer you a teaching residency for next fall, a semester-long position helping our music education students." "I'll need to think about it," I said quietly, never breaking eye contact with Emily. 3 days later, Emily appeared at my door. She held the newspaper with my photo from the graduation ceremony, me sitting in the back row, watching her receive her degree. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside. She walked to the living room where the piano stood, lid open, sheet music scattered everywhere. "I read the article about the song selection," she said, her voice tight. "They quoted you. You said you wanted to write something honest about the space between love and pride, about being close to someone who feels a million miles away." "That's right." She turned to face me, tears streaming. "I made you feel small for being the only thing that ever made me proud." The words hung between us. "At that fair, when I saw you singing, I didn't see an embarrassing old man. I saw you happy. And it terrified me because I realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd been that happy. So I made it about me, about my image, my reputation. I turned your joy into my shame." I didn't speak. Sometimes you just let people finish. "I'm sorry, Dad. I'm sorry I made you feel like your music was something to be ashamed of. I'm sorry I stopped calling. I'm sorry Her voice broke completely. I walked to the piano and sat down. My hands found the keys, muscle memory from 40 years of playing. "Then sing with me," I said softly. She stared at me. "What?" "Come sing with me. Like you used to when you were little. Before everything got complicated." Emily crossed the room slowly and stood beside the piano, just like she had 2 decades ago. I played the opening to Unheard Melody, and Emily started singing. Word spread fast through Maplewood. The retired music teacher and his daughter were performing together at next month's alumni concert. I accepted the teaching residency at Redwood State. Emily helped me prepare, coming over twice a week to practice and plan lessons. "What changed?" I asked one evening as we ate dinner at my kitchen table. "When I heard that song at graduation, I realized something." Emily set down her fork. "You wrote it after I told you you embarrassed me. After I stopped calling. After I basically erased you from my life. And you didn't write something angry or bitter. You wrote something beautiful. It's what I felt." "Exactly. You showed me what real strength looks like. Not lashing out, not demanding attention. Just creating something honest and letting it find its way." She reached across the table and took my hand. "You taught me more in 4 minutes of music than I learned in 4 years of psychology courses." We sat in comfortable silence. "Mom would have loved that song," Emily finally said. "I wrote it for both of you." The Redwood State alumni concert arrived on a warm July evening. The auditorium filled with students, faculty, and community members. I stood backstage in my navy suit, guitar in hand. Emily stood beside me in a simple black dress. "Nervous?" she asked. "Terrified." "Good. That means it matters." The lights dimmed. The crowd hushed. The concert coordinator called our names. Emily and I walked on stage together to surprised gasps. Nobody expected this. The graduation song composer performing with his daughter. We sat on 2 stools under a single spotlight. I adjusted my guitar. Emily leaned toward the microphone. This song is called Unheard Melody, I said into the silence. I wrote it during the hardest months of my life. Tonight, I'm not singing it alone. I played the opening chords. Emily sang the first verse, her voice clear and strong. I joined her on the chorus, our voices blending the way they had when she was small. The final line, the one I'd added just for tonight, played out over the silent auditorium. The only embarrassment is silence. The last note faded. Then the crowd erupted. People stood, applauding, crying. Veronica wiped tears from the 3rd row. Thomas stood in the back, filming on his phone. Former students cheered. Emily turned to me, tears streaming down her face. I love you, Dad. I love you too. We took our bow together. As we walked off stage, I realized something profound. I hadn't won through spite or revenge. I'd won through grace. By continuing to love her even when she couldn't see it. By creating beauty even when it hurt. By refusing to let her shame silence my song. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't forcing someone to hear you. It's being worth listening to when they finally choose to. The music had finally reached home.